In the spring of 1816, the world believed the nightmare was finally over. For more than 20 years, Europe had been locked in almost constant war. An entire generation had grown up knowing nothing but marching armies, burned villages, and endless bloodshed. But now, Napoleon Bonaparte had been defeated. The cannons were silent. The continent exhaled. People looked toward the future with cautious hope. Fields were plowed once more. Seeds were planted into soil that had been trampled by soldiers for decades. Families dreamed of stability, of full granaries, warm summers, and children who would not know war. No one suspected that nature itself was about to declare war on humanity. Across Europe and North America, the year began normally. Winters faded. Rivers thawed. Farmers prepared for the growing season with a sense of optimism not felt in years. The world expected abundance. Instead, it would receive catastrophe. By May, something felt wrong. The skies seemed different. Sunsets glowed in eerie red. Days felt dimmer, colder. In parts of Germany and Switzerland, icy rain fell where gentle warmth should have been. Farmers paused in their fields, staring upward, confused. Then June arrived, and summer never came. On June 6, 1816, snow fell across New England. Not flurries, real heavy snow. In Vermont, fields turned white. In New York, lakes skimmed over with ice. Frost killed crops overnight. People wrapped themselves in winter coats. In June, across the Atlantic, Europe suffered the same fate. In Ireland, relentless cold rain rotted potatoes in the ground. In France, vineyards failed. In the Alps, snowstorms buried mountain passes normally clear in summer. This was not a local disaster. It was global. Temperatures dropped across the northern hemisphere. Crops that had sustained communities for centuries failed simultaneously. Grain prices skyrocketed. Food became scarce. Hunger crept in quietly at first, then violently. No one understood why. There were no scientists with climate models. No satellites watching the skies. To the people of 1816, the sun itself seemed broken. Churches filled with frightened worshippers. Some whispered that this was divine punishment. Others spoke of the end times. Newspapers printed desperate speculation. Sunspots, comets, even secret weapons left over from war. The truth was far worse, and far away. Unseen by the suffering farmers of Europe and America, the cause of their misery lay on the other side of the world, in the Dutch East Indies, modern-day Indonesia. There, in April 1815, a mountain had exploded with unimaginable force. Mount Tambora. At first, few outside the region noticed. News traveled slowly and Europe was still consumed with war. But Tambora was not just another volcanic eruption. It was the most powerful volcanic explosion in recorded human history. The blast was so violent it tore the mountain apart. Entire villages were erased in seconds. Tens of thousands died immediately. But Tambora's true weapon was not lava or ash. It was the sky. The eruption hurled more than 100 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere, far higher than rain clouds, far beyond the reach of weather. These particles spread across the globe, forming a thin veil that wrapped the earth like a shroud. Sunlight was dimmed. Temperatures fell. The climate system destabilized. But in 1816, no one connected the dots. People only saw the results: ruined harvests, starving families, and a growing sense of panic. In Switzerland, food shortages grew so severe that riots erupted. In England, bread prices doubled. In parts of Germany, desperate families ate grass and roots to survive. This was not a famine caused by war or poor governance. This was something far more terrifying. It was a failure of nature itself. And this was only the beginning. Because as summer collapsed into autumn, and autumn offered no relief, the world would soon realize that 1816 was not just a bad year. It was a turning point. A year that would reshape migration, art, science, and even give birth to some of the darkest stories humanity has ever told. The year without a summer had begun. On April 5, 1815, the ground beneath the island of Sumbawa began to tremble. At first, the people living in the shadow of Mount Tambora thought it was another ordinary eruption. Indonesia sits along the Ring of Fire. Volcanoes were a part of life. Smoke, ash, distant rumbles, none of it caused panic. But Tambora was not ordinary. For days, the mountain growled like a living thing waking from a long sleep. Columns of ash rose into the sky. Explosions echoed across the sea. By April 10th, the sound of the eruption could be heard more than 2,000 kilometers away. Some thought cannons were firing. They were wrong. That evening, Tambora erupted with a force humanity had never recorded before and has never seen again. The summit of the mountain exploded outward. Fire, ash, and rock were hurled into the sky at supersonic speeds. Entire forests were flattened in seconds. Pyroclastic flows, superheated avalanches of gas and debris, raced down the slopes at hundreds of kilometers per hour, incinerating everything in their path. Villages vanished. People had no chance to flee. The eruption column punched through the atmosphere, rising more than 40 kilometers into the sky, far higher than commercial jets fly today. The blast released the energy equivalent of tens of thousands of nuclear bombs. The mountain lost more than a third of its height. Tambora had torn itself apart. Ash fell for days. The sky turned black. At noon, darkness swallowed the land. People lit torches just to see their hands. Breathing became painful as ash filled the air, choking lungs and poisoning water supplies. Tsunamis triggered by the collapse slammed into nearby coastlines, drowning entire communities. Crops were buried. Livestock died where they stood. By the time the eruption ended, more than 70,000 people were dead, many not from the explosion itself, but from starvation and disease in the months that followed. And yet, this local horror was only the opening act, because Tambora had launched something far more deadly than lava into the sky: sulfur. Millions of tons of sulfur dioxide gas had been injected into the stratosphere, a region of the atmosphere so high that rain could not wash it away. There, the gas transformed into tiny sulfate particles, forming a reflective veil around the Earth. This veil spread slowly, invisibly, riding high-altitude winds. Weeks passed, then months. By early 1816, the sun's light was no longer reaching the surface as it once had. The planet began to cool. Globally, temperatures dropped by an average of 1 degree Celsius. That may sound small, but for agriculture it was catastrophic. 1 degree was enough to shorten growing seasons, enough to cause frost in summer, enough to collapse food systems that had evolved over centuries. The climate had entered chaos. Rain fell where drought had ruled. Snow arrived where warmth was expected. Monsoons failed in Asia, triggering famine in China and India. In Europe and North America, fields rotted or froze. The sky itself changed. Sunsets turned blood red and purple, painted by light scattering through volcanic dust. Artists captured the eerie beauty, unaware they were documenting atmospheric disaster. Even the sun appeared dim, as though seen through smoked glass. But in 1816 there was no science to explain this. People did not know about sulfur aerosols or volcanic winters. They only knew hunger, cold, fear. In England, diarists wrote of a sun without warmth. In Switzerland, summer snowfall trapped travelers in mountain passes. In America, Thomas Jefferson, former president, lost much of his crops to frost. This was not just bad weather. This was the Earth reacting to a wound in its atmosphere. And humanity was helpless. As governments struggled to respond, food prices surged beyond reach. Riots erupted in cities. Soldiers were deployed not for war, but to protect grain stores from the starving. The natural order people depended on had failed. The seasons could no longer be trusted. And soon, desperation would drive people to abandon their homes, their countries, and their beliefs about how the world worked. Because the year without a summer was no longer just a climate event. It was becoming a human catastrophe. By the summer of 1816, it was no longer possible to deny the truth. The seasons were broken. Across the northern hemisphere, people waited for warmth that never arrived. Instead of sunshine, cold rain fell day after day. Instead of green fields, farmers watched their crops rot in the soil or die from frost. In June, snow fell across New England for the second time in weeks. In Quebec, ice formed on rivers meant to carry trade and life. In Massachusetts, farmers reported killing frost every single month of the growing season. Corn, the backbone of survival, blackened and died overnight. In Europe, the situation was just as grim. Switzerland became the epicenter of suffering. Trapped between mountains, cut off from trade routes, entire villages ran out of food. Continuous rain ruined wheat and barley harvests. Bread became a luxury. In some regions, people survived on thin soups made from grass and moss. Starvation crept in slowly, then all at once. Horses collapsed in the streets. Livestock was slaughtered early, flooding markets briefly before meat vanished altogether. Parents skipped meals so their children could eat, until there was nothing left to give. By late summer, hunger turned to violence. Food riots erupted across England, France, and Germany. Grain carts were attacked. Bakeries were looted. Governments responded with soldiers, bayonets guarding bread. The war had ended, but peace brought no relief. In Ireland, the potato crop, normally resilient, failed under relentless cold and rain. Disease spread among weakened populations. Fever and dysentery followed famine like shadows. This was a chain reaction disaster. Cold destroyed crops. Hunger weakened bodies. Disease finished the job. And it wasn't only Europe. In China, failed monsoons caused massive flooding followed by drought. Rice harvests collapsed. In India, famine and a cholera outbreak killed hundreds of thousands. The volcanic veil in the sky did not respect borders. It circled the earth. In the United States, desperation pushed people westward. Thousands abandoned farms in New England, migrating toward Ohio and the frontier in search of land that had not betrayed them. This movement would reshape the nation. Entire communities uprooted themselves because the climate had turned hostile. And still no one knew why. Without explanation, fear filled the gaps. Many believed God had turned away. Churches overflowed. Days of prayer were declared. Others believed the sun itself was dying. Some turned to science. A handful of thinkers began recording temperatures, cloud cover, and crop yields. For the first time, humans tried to measure climate as a system, not an act of divine whim. But this knowledge came too late for millions. In the cold, dark summer of 1816, despair reached even the world of art and imagination. On the shores of Lake Geneva, a group of young writers found themselves trapped indoors by endless storms. Among them was an 18-year-old woman named Mary Shelley. Bored, restless, and surrounded by gloom, they challenged each other to write ghost stories. Out of that unnatural summer, out of cold, darkness, and fear, was born Frankenstein. A story about creation gone wrong. A story about humanity unleashing forces it cannot control. The year without a summer had begun to shape culture itself. Pain, hunger, migration, creativity, everything bent under its weight. But the worst was not over. Because as 1816 dragged on, it became clear this was not a single bad season. It was a systemic collapse. And from that collapse would come permanent change. The world would not return to what it had been before. By the autumn of 1816, hope had become a dangerous illusion. The harvest season, humanity's final chance, had failed. Across Europe and North America, granaries stood nearly empty. What little grain had been salvaged was hoarded, guarded, or sold at prices the poor could never afford. Hunger was no longer a threat. It was reality. In England, bread prices doubled, then tripled. In France, memories of the revolution resurfaced as angry crowds filled the streets. Governments feared that famine would ignite political collapse. Soldiers were deployed not against foreign enemies, but against their own starving citizens. In Germany and Switzerland, reports described skeletal figures wandering the countryside in search of food. Children were abandoned. The elderly were left behind. Desperation eroded morality. This was survival stripped of dignity. Crime surged. Grain theft became a capital offense in some regions, punishable by execution. Yet still, people stole, because hunger does not fear the law. The social order began to fracture. Charity systems collapsed under the scale of need. Churches that once offered comfort now rationed bread. Local governments imposed price controls, export bans, and emergency grain laws, but none could create food where none existed. Meanwhile, disease flourished. Malnutrition weakened immune systems, allowing typhus, dysentery, and cholera to spread rapidly. Hospitals overflowed. Graveyards filled. In some towns, the dead were buried in mass pits. The sky remained cold and gray. Winter arrived early. In November, rivers froze before crops could be transported. Snow buried roads. Relief efforts failed as entire regions became inaccessible. People began to flee. In Europe, migration surged toward cities and ports, where rumors claimed food might still exist. In America, families loaded their belongings onto wagons and headed west, abandoning land that had sustained them for generations. This was one of the first climate-driven mass migrations in modern history. Nature had forced people to move. Some did not survive the journey. Those who reached new lands carried stories of betrayal, of skies that froze, of summers that vanished, of a world that had turned against its people. And still, the cause remained unknown. No one connected their suffering to a distant volcano on the other side of the planet. The idea that a single eruption could change global climate was beyond imagination. Yet the consequences were rewriting human history. Governments began collecting weather data systematically. Scientists started to question long-held beliefs about climate stability. Artists painted darker landscapes. Writers explored themes of despair, isolation, and human fragility. Even technology changed. Crop failures accelerated the search for agricultural innovation. New crop rotations, fertilizers, and food preservation methods emerged in response to catastrophe. Pain forced progress. But for millions, this progress came too late. By 1817, the worst of the famine had passed, but the damage was permanent. Entire communities were gone. Borders had shifted through migration. Trust in nature's reliability had been shattered. Humanity had learned a brutal lesson. Civilization was only one bad year away from collapse. Yet from this suffering, something unexpected emerged. Adaptation, resilience, and a new understanding of the world's interconnectedness. Because the year without a summer had revealed something terrifying and profound. The Earth was not an endless provider. It was a system. And when that system was disrupted, everyone paid the price. By 1817, the skies slowly began to clear. The volcanic veil thinned. Sunlight returned. Temperatures crept upward. Crops cautiously began to grow again. But the world that emerged was not the same one that had entered 1816. The year without a summer had killed hundreds of thousands, perhaps more. Not through fire or war, but through cold, hunger, and systemic failure. It had revealed how fragile human civilization truly was when nature shifted the rules. For the first time, humanity began to understand that climate could be global. Scientists pieced together evidence from weather logs, crop records, and atmospheric observations. Though they could not yet fully explain volcanic winters, the idea that Earth's systems were interconnected took root. This marked the quiet birth of climate science. Governments also changed. Many states realized that food security was a matter of national survival. Grain reserves were expanded. Trade policies adjusted. Early disaster response systems, primitive but intentional, began to form. Agriculture evolved. Farmers diversified crops, reduced reliance on single harvests, and experimented with new methods. The disasters of 1816 accelerated innovation that would later support industrialized societies. Migration reshaped nations. In the United States, the westward movement sparked by crop failure helped populate Ohio, Indiana, and beyond. Europe saw demographic shifts that altered labor markets and weakened rigid feudal structures. The poor, those who survived, gained leverage. Culture bore the scars. Art grew darker, more introspective. Literature explored human vulnerability. Frankenstein, born from the storms of 1816, became a timeless warning about unchecked power and unintended consequences. The lesson lingered beneath the surface of progress. Humanity had survived not because it controlled nature, but because it adapted to it. Today, Mount Tambora still stands, quiet, weathered. Its massive crater is a scar, a reminder of the day Earth altered the course of human history without warning. The year without a summer is often forgotten. It does not have a single battlefield, no decisive treaty, no crowned victor, but it changed the world. It proved that a single event, in a remote corner of the planet, could affect every continent. That civilization is only as strong as the systems that sustain it, and that history is not shaped by humanity alone. Sometimes, the Earth itself takes control of the story. If you enjoyed this journey into one of history's strangest years, let us know in the comments. Which forgotten catastrophe should we uncover next using our AI lens? I'm Elias, and together we keep history reborn. I'll see you in the next era.